Welcome back, and once again welcome back, because it's a very politically busy day today. So we were talking about the inclusivity, and I was talking so why people are the people with disabilities, they're so good at discovering the patterns, and that is why we need to talk about the inclusivity. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce our worthy guest, because he's going to tell us more about them. So we have been joined by Itfaq Khaliq Khan Sahab, who happens to be social activist and development professional. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to World this morning.
Wa alaikum assalam and very good morning. Thank you very much for having me in the show.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us, and it's certainly our pleasure to actually have you over here.
Right.
Now, sir, when we talk about inclusivity, I think that the first part which we really need to address over here is education. And in terms of education, when we talk about people who are differently abled, that's how I would want to kind of refer to them as well. I would certainly want them to be under the same roof where every other child is getting their education, so that they certainly feel themselves that they are a part of the same society, that they are part of the same nation.
Right.
First of all, how do we do that?
Okay, so basically we are talking about the inclusion and inclusivity. So it goes across all the sectors, including education, health, employment, and all that.
Right.
And when we specifically talk about education, you're absolutely right that we need to see children with disabilities under the same roof where we have all other children, so that in the future they can become part of the mainstream society. So that is the key, basically. So how we can do that is basically just to we just need to make few adaptations, few modifications.
For example,
in the policy as well as in the infrastructure of the schools, just to make the environment inclusive and accessible for children with disabilities. For example, we need to make changes in the policy that can guide us that these children are also can easily be mainstream into the mainstream schools. And then at the school level, we need to have we need to make some adaptation in the infrastructure, for example, to make them accessible for wheelchair users, children with physical limitations who use wheelchairs. We need to make some adaptation in the teachers' training, just to equip teachers that they are able to interact with this kind of children and make their classrooms inclusive of children with disabilities. We need to make adaptation in the curriculum as well, and we need to facilitate through these systems. For example, for the blind children, we need to adapt and have the curriculum in the Braille, and for the hearing impaired, we need to have it in the sign language, so that every child can be accommodated in the same class.
Exactly, and this is exactly how PTV has been spearheading as well, because we do have news bulletins where we do have sign language as well. We always make sure that whatever content we share is for everybody out there. But sir, since today happens to be a very politically busy day, as my wonderful colleague just mentioned, so very quickly before we wrap up this segment, I want you to share your idea of inclusivity for people who are differently able.
Okay, so right.
And I also want you to address the stigma that is attached to such kind of.
So for that, I'll refer back to the start of the segment when we were talking about Shahzad was telling us a story about the use of glasses, a story of his own.
Right.
So he mentioned that he somehow stopped wearing glasses just because his sister made a comment. So that is basically the stigma. So in case of males, in case of Shahzad, that was not that severe.
Right.
But if you then think about the girls, the women, the people living in rural areas, in difficult circumstances, so there are stigmas attached with the use of the glasses, and in the same way there is a stigma and discrimination attached with the disability. So they are believed not to be able to perform tasks as per their peer with non-disability. But that's not true. We have so many examples. We have wonderful people with disabilities that have created a huge impact in not in lives of their own, but in the life of other people.
Right. That's
so this is one part that we are talking about, the discrimination, and then I'm coming back that how we think, how I think about So as I mentioned, it goes across all the sectors, starting from the education, because that is the start, and then it comes to the health, and then lastly the most important part is the inclusion of people with disabilities into the job market, into the employment, and that is keeping the time in mind, I'll talk more about it, because that is something more important, because if you want to make them fully included into the society, they need to be financially independent.
True.
But they feel challenges. For example, the employers are not disability confident,
right.
and then the people with disabilities, the job seekers, are not very much, self-confident and due to
And
the
prepared
stigma
for the change.
and prepared for the change. So we need to work on both ends. We need to
Yes.
build.
And we need to celebrate the neurodiversity, because this is something to be celebrated. They are different and they can contribute as fully to the society as any other people can, because we have a lot of contributions from society like Einstein and etc.
Yeah.
So we are going to a short break, and after we are back, we're going to talk about some very interesting subjects.